I want to discuss with you one small aspect of the hospital, physical aspect of the hospital, and that is the patient room. The reason I have the credentials to do that is not because I'm an architect and designer. It's because I spent 3 years in 8 hospitals and 2 rehab centers, and I learned a lot. And I did that because I was overworked and my immune system was pretty low, and I was traveling around the world on jobs, and I had a sinus cold I couldn't get rid of, sinus. And for all you sinus sufferers, we won't hold up hands. But I came back to the States and went to work on Monday morning and couldn't, for the first time in my life, couldn't get through the day. The pain in my back, for some reason, from sinus to back, what was going on? I took myself to the hospital around 2 in the afternoon, and by the next morning I was paralyzed from the upper chest down. My surgeon told me I had what 4 other people have in the United States, and that is sinus that goes to the brain, an infected sinus that goes to the brain and then to the spine, and then paralysis. So my spinal cord isn't cut, it's just, it looks like the bottom of a sunken ship, I guess. Not so good. But I did all that, and then I want to tell you a couple of stories about my time in the hospital. I was in therapy by this time, out of the intensive care and into therapy and learning to do things like put on my shoes, and as the slide showed. And I was getting very proficient at that. I piled up my clothes next to me in therapy the night before going to sleep, underwear on the top so I could put it on. And this was the grand test to get out of therapy, was to put on your clothes by yourself, feel self-empowered, and to indeed get into my wheelchair with a sliding board, some of you know what that is, by myself, and roll myself into the bathroom, all of which I did. I felt very, very good about myself. And I rolled into the bathroom to shave and brush my teeth, and in those days, comb my hair. And I had a big smile on my face. I had done it. I was getting out. I was going back to work. And I reached for the hot water for my shaving routine, and the handle was out of reach. Now this was a rehab center for 99% of the people there were in wheelchairs. I thought, well, no big problem. I'll have somebody from my office bring me my electric razor tomorrow, and I'll do it electrically. So, still feeling self-empowered, I looked to see where I would plug in the electric razor, and at the base of the wall near the floor was the outlet, out of reach. And then I thought, well, at least brush your teeth, Michael. Cold water, out of reach. So I felt like shit, and I wheeled out, and just at that time, my surgeon came by for morning rounds. And I said, oh, delightful, Dr. K, you're here. This is terrific. Why? I said, well, because I want you to do something for me this morning. He said, what's that? I said, go out in the hallway where there are plenty of unused wheelchairs, get in a wheelchair and roll yourself back in here. And begrudgingly, he did it like a good sport. And he said, now what? And I said, go to the bathroom and turn on the faucet for shaving. He said, I can't reach it. Knowing that he wanted me to imitate me because I only can bend from here. And then I said, well, brush your teeth. Can't reach it. I said, how about plugging in you got it. Can't reach it. And I said, you know, I remember you told me that this place had been built, planned, and designed by experts. Be very careful when an architect calls himself or herself an expert. We are not very smart. Really not very smart. Now, the AIA won't like me for saying that, but how can you get it wrong when you're designing a rehab center like a hospital? So I said, I know that you're adding on to this place $40 million worth. Are the same experts your architects? He said, they were. And I said, well, then you're going to have to do one of two things. Learn to read plans, or hire an architect that knows what he's doing to read plans for you. It's not so hard. What you do is much more difficult, I think. Or, like the hospitality, meaning hotel industry does, build a model room. You're spending $40 million. Build a model room in a warehouse someplace and see if everything works. See if the room's too small. See if the patient can see out into the landscape. See if the patient can reach the hot water. He said he would, which he didn't, of course. And they built the $40 million addition with the same experts and the same problems. This picture that you've studied now long and hard of me in this fascinating room in the same building, that's the knee of the therapist standing next to me who's urging me to buy a pair of sneakers with Velcro. I told her that they were too ugly. I couldn't wear Velcro. And she said, well, what about this place? And I said, how about this bedspread? I said, listen, we got to get it right because it is far too ugly for me to die here. Though I see they're prepared for anything. There are 3 potty chairs on the other side of the room. It doesn't make you feel very good when the stuff around you is saying, I'm sick. Nevertheless, I got my shoes on that day. It looks like I've already got them on. The reason my hands have those golf gloves on is I had given up golf by that time, but that's for beginners in a manual wheelchair. But while I'm here, I just want to tell you the story of another instance in my office. I had decided by this time that with the state of affairs that I was seeing in these 8 hospitals, 2 rehab centers, that I needed, as an architect designer, to do something about it, to put it on my plate, and to go after healthcare in the biggest way I could. So we did get some healthcare clients, and one of them sent us around the world, not me, but other people in my studio around for looking at new hospitals. And one of the ones that I got to see in the States was, I actually got Dean's chair so I could go to Europe and China and Japan. I haven't done it yet. I'm a little worried that they're not ready for me. But That's an aside. But what I did do was go to a hospital, recently finished, gleaming new. As I rolled up to it, I thought, this will be fun. I'll see what they've done right. Surely the same experts aren't here. So I opened the door. Well, the door was open for me because there was no push button to open the door. Oops. It's the law. So I rolled into the first room, which was the lobby. It yelled lobby at me. It had a 4-story glass atrium. I looked for the Hyatt sign. I couldn't find it. I was in a hospital. Am I going to convalesce in one of the 5 chairs in the 4-story glass atrium with the world watching me? Learning to throw the ball and put on my underwear? I don't think so. Something's wrong with this equation. I went to the patient room, my favorite room, and after looking at the OR and the maternity, and where the experts had gotten it right. But I went into the patient room, and then I knew what had happened with this equation. Somebody had turned it upside down. The architects, this not very bright group, knew that that's what the magazines would photograph. Atrium. Just so you are all smarter than the architects, atriums are only 1 floor high, classically speaking. Think Pompeii. That's where they started. Hyatt turned it into the 27-story monsters that we have now. That's not the talk. All right. So into the patient room, and then I knew. It was the smallest patient room in Christendom. And I said, I got it. The money was spent on the public spaces, the lobby, the dining room, the other smaller lobbies, the comfy chairs for grandma. What about the patient? As we add more and more really good technology to the patient room, and anybody who knows that world knows that that's happening, the patient room is getting smaller. The architect has to make the patient room big enough so that the orderlies or the clinicians or whomever is moving you from the bed to the rollator to the other devices to get you into MRIs or wherever you're going from the patient room, they have to have room to maneuver. I didn't do anything more than glance into the bathroom in that very small patient room, knowing that it had been repeated 200 or 300 times. But I looked at the bathroom and I knew my friends, the experts, had been there again. So we'll go on a different journey. Here's the state of affairs in the hospital today. It's not terrible. It's not third world, but it's a bit tragic. Here's this elderly lady with her sidebars moved up on her bed so that she can't reach her television set. So she has to call the nurse to bring her television set over. She can't reach the tissues that she bought at Walgreens because of the railing on the bed. If she were able to get one and use it, it's an NBA hook shot to get it into the wastebasket. On the heater is the female urinal. Think about it. No, don't think about it. At the end of the bed is a male urinal. I didn't ask her, and I didn't even circle it for you. Time for a sex change. I decided that I really had a lot of work to do. In the underneath side of my over-the-bed table, which had a drawer at one time, long since gone, I took a picture with my cell phone. I've thrown my camera out. I use my cell phone now. And you see the paw prints there, greasy, it's time for lunch kind of thing. And a lot of gum, which is turning green with little furry stuff on it, growing in the slots where the drawer used to be. I thought, is there a way that I could keep the hands off the side of the over the bed table and cause the cleaning crew to clean the top and nobody touch the bottom? Is it possible to design furniture that would lessen infection? Is it possible to design furniture that would lessen the bariatric patient, the elderly patient, the chronically impaired patient to not fall? Is that possible with furniture? I think so. So we took it on. Here's our over-the-bed table, 3 little pictures of it, with the biggest handles that you can ever imagine. So that's what the cleaning crew will clean. You really have to see the cleaning crews in the hospital room if you want to know what quick is. They're anxious to get to their break. It's like this. I'm finished. So there's a big handle on one end to keep your goodies from falling off. The top of the tray, you're told, one side, the smaller side for your cell phone and tissues and so on, and the big side for your lunch. If it's not cleared off, when the lunch tray comes, they put the lunch out in the hallway to get cold. So you want to have it ready and clear. The other end of that, if I had a pointer, you would see down the lower right-hand side, another handle on the far end, the close end to us here, of the bedside table. Another place to pull it around, really easy glides. And finally, a little paddle that there in the top slide where you can, the patient can raise it, that elderly lady, could raise it or lower with one finger. We wanted this to happen, and it did. It was a matter of engineering, not architecture. This is what we find in most of the hospitals. This is going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Everybody's going to get candy. There it is in a gold box. Everybody's going to have bad food, newspaper, telephone, and in the spit cup you find the toothpaste. Ooh. That's juicy. But all I could do as an architect is sort of organize it, which isn't very much. So we made R2-D2 here, and here it is. It's a companion piece to the overbed table, because if you put them both on at the same time, you have the biggest work surface with your laptop on one and your lunch and your tissues and your cell phone. The nurses are so excited about this because the wastebasket is on the piece of furniture. Working down, you see a drawer that actually, we found drawers that were pushed up against the bed and you couldn't open them. So we thought drawers that go both ways, not a big deal. So we did that. There's a little stop in the middle. You know when you're there, you push it the other way. You can't make a mistake. Below that is a plastic box for your valuables, and you can take it home. For 75 cents, they can put a new box in there. You're going to pay it anyway. And down on the bottom, a place for your purse or your shoes or whatever. And that was an innovation, they said, and it's selling like hotcakes. I am so pleased. It's the only way, as a designer, you know what you've done is going down well. The next thing is a slightly younger patient here, asleep at the wheel, and she's got a sheet on her chair, a chair in the room. She's convalescing, and so that she doesn't get somebody else's cooties, she's put a sheet down. It seems that everybody does this. I never did it, but everybody else does it. So we made something called, as they say in my office, sheet technology. Yes, well, there are these two little catches in the back, and you stick the sheet in there, and the sheet won't fall off because the nurses were complaining that when the patient got out of the chair, they took the sheet with them from sticking to them with the sweat, and it would fall on the floor, and then they would have another sheet to wash, and the whole cycle would start again. So we thought better find a way to keep it to the chairs, so we did. Looking at that chair, you can just see one arm. That arm sticks out in front of the face of the chair. The seat of the chair is here. The arm is out here. Now, why did I do that? This is why I did it. It's called stand assist. Here's a young man who's just pulled him, if we read from the left to the right, he's just pulled himself forward in the chair. You see the handles are out in front. He's in photograph 2. He's got his nose over his toes. When you go to your room tonight, sit in a chair on the edge of the bed, and put your nose over the toes and stand up. See what happens to your equilibrium. It's amazing. It's like Dean's chair. It carries your weight. It all goes to your leg and your torso, not your stomach. And then he stands up, and then on the final slide is the one I like because we could run the whole film backwards now. Somebody trying to sit down. I went to dinner here the other night. A man who had had a stroke was trying for 10 minutes to sit in the chair. It was a struggle. If he had had this, he would have had the 2 handles, which is all he wanted. It was an armless chair that he had to sit in. And he finally sat down with a great plop, which couldn't have felt good. But here is this young man who can now sit back the same way. So again, the bariatric patient, the arthritic patient, the elderly patient, all of them will have a chair. This too is selling well. Here's our little family. This is a year's worth of work. And finally, there's a little table on the right that I didn't explain. It's simply another bedside table with 2 tops, one for your cell phone and the flowers, and the other for your newspaper and candy and so on, just to organize it a bit. All of the corners, and the modernists in the room will hate this, all the corners of the furniture have been rounded off. No sharp edges. Sorry, Bauhaus. And the handles are obvious and very easy to clean. They're not hidden because they're unsightly. We made them sightly, and we wanted the cleaning crew to know where they were, because that has to be cleaned before the next patient comes to the room. And lastly, in the chairs, I wanted to show you this chair, which is called a transfer chair. If you're due for an MRI or a CAT scan or an X-ray, you get in this chair, and with your sliding board, the arms come back. They're stand assist as well, if you're ambulatory. And down you go to the lab, and sometimes the lab isn't ready for you, and you have to wait for up to an hour. In the chairs that they have in the hospital today, that's a crucial amount of time, because they are the most uncomfortable things, especially when you have a spinal injury like I do. So I was determined to make a very, very comfortable chair. Steelcase would be happy with me. So here it is with its IV pole and a place in the back for oxygen and all of that. And this is still a prototype, but it's coming off the assembly line soon. And finally, I show you where I started all of this before we had designed any of these things. This is the stand assist chair that was in my sketchbook at that time, and the overbed table, the other things we hadn't designed yet. And we hadn't designed the patient head wall, which is the next thing we want to do, to organize all those plugs and outlets and all of that. There are companies that are doing that now. We want to add ours to what they're doing to see if they've forgotten anything. And also, as an architect, I want to draw standards for the ADA and for graphic standards. I want to draw standards so that the room will be seen as an ideal condition, not one that'll have to be restudied each time by experts. And with that, I thank you.